Hello, PHL 1200 students, my critical thinkers. I hope you're doing awesome. Thought I would record a quick video to go over this week's lecture and jump right into it now. So, rival causes. This is a very fun module. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do teaching it. You do have some research, some things here to read and also watch. I highly recommend you watch How Ice Cream Kills: Causation versus Correlation. Some of you are in QLR 1000, where we were just going over this as well and looking deeper into a correlation. So very important to know how increase in ice cream sales, for example, increases shark attacks. They're highly correlated, but they don't actually cause each other. So hope you watch that. So jumping into the PowerPoint, you're probably wondering why there's all these maps. Well, I do a little bit here where I go into, just for critical thinking's sake, what are the true sizes of countries? Now, many of you, well, usually it's 8 out of 10 students aren't aware of this little geographic tidbit. Some of you will be, but it should still be fun. So I was in an elementary school and they had a floor to ceiling wall map of the world. And I was staring at it, and as a cartographer at heart, as a geographic information system professional, I was just amazed at how this map is lying to the school kids. This is traditionally what we see. The Greenland is massive, Russia is very big, Africa is small. Well, this is a sphere being projected onto a two-dimensional surface. So they have to stretch all these top points that would normally converge at the North Pole. They have to stretch them. So it's distorting the geography. This one's funny because I recall seeing how massive Antarctica looks compared to the rest of the continents. It's actually quite small, but it's getting very stretched out as these points should be converging. Um, I was on an airplane flying back once from Europe, and the lady said, "Why don't they just fly straight across the ocean?" She was sitting next to me. I'm telling the truth, honest truth. She's like, "Why do they always have to fly so far north to come back down, in this case, Detroit to Tokyo?" Well, if you actually look at the flight path, say on Google Earth, a sphere, it is flying a straight path. In the map on the screen on the airplane seat, it looks like it's a curve. Same thing from Europe. If you take the same thing, look at the flight path, they are flying, in fact, a straight line. So this map is somewhat lying to you, unless you are aware of geographic projections. The other one that really gets me is these continents to the far north and southern hemisphere, or countries, I guess, and continents, they get so stretched out. If you drop Greenland down to the equator, where there would be a lot less distortion because the lines aren't being stretched as the map projection goes up to the north or south, this is how big Greenland actually is. In maybe you didn't realize this, Africa usually looks small. We can fit India, China, United States, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, all these countries in the continent of Africa. So if you wanted to look a little more detailed into this, I do have a an article that I found, the problem with our maps. It talks about the typical Mercator projection and who invented it. And it shows the true sizes compared. So, Canada and the US are actually about the same size. Australia, nicely kind of fits almost the size of the US with a different shape. The Greenland one I showed, this one I showed, and so you get the point. Some countries might prefer that. Like Russia being stretched looks very massive, and it's actually a fairly smaller country when compared to other countries. So getting back into it, rival causes. So I know you can go through many of these slides yourself and let me know if you have any questions. But the big fun with rival causes, you can even be kind of silly about it. But we're looking at, um, causal oversimplification, right? Relying on causal factors that are insufficient to account for the event or overemphasizing the role of one or more factors. So you could have a mayor that's elected and the crime rate has been going down and says, "Hey, my policies are the reason the crime rate's going down." Well, maybe not. That may not actually be the true relationship between crime rates and the mayor's policy. And then just a fun one. I'm not being political, saying pro global warming, that it is happening or it's not, but it's a great one to play with. You could say that fossil fuels, pollution from a car, from factories is causing it, or just for fun, just to be a little silly, maybe there's a rival cause. If you ever really looked into what's under our Earth's crust, it's molten lava. It's extremely hot. There's multiple layers going down to the Earth's core. Perhaps the Earth warms and cools naturally from within, or the sun expands and gets bigger. So again, not getting political one way or the other, but it's fun to look for rival causes. You can also have multiple perspectives, right? Leads to greater creativity. So, and then going into confusion with cause and effect. I dive into this a little deeper in an in-person lecture. Uh, Again, watch that video of the ice cream. But in correlation, very briefly here, this is when you look at different variables. So I was actually hired as a consultant once to help locate a new co-op optical store, eyewear, and they gave me all their customers' demographic, age, income, how close they were to a manufacturing plant, all things that seemed highly correlated for why a customer would go to that place. And no kidding, their store in Farmington Hills that did not have highly correlated variables, different income group, lower age than the typical optical was their least performing store. But I was able to apply those correlations, those variables I found, and apply them to different geographic areas, and found that using that same high degree of correlation, being age, income, and location proximity to a factory, which seemed to be a large part of their customer base, an area outside of Toledo had a very high correlation with those demographics and would be a likely good place for success for their company. Let's not confuse that with causation. I do show some brief GIS maps here, tons of data available if you want to take a deep dive into correlation and become somewhat of a demographer, or help different companies locate store locations, for example. Where causation is more, you think of that as the COVID-19 vaccine trial, or any vaccine for that matter, where it has a cause and effect. You give a certain vaccine to a subset of people, they react well, they don't react. It's this constant testing, cause and effect, until you get to a vaccine that you can bring to market. So as a critical thinker, please, expand your mind a little bit. Maybe you already do so, not being critical, but just consider alternative explanations. And certainly, I preach this constantly in class, be sensitive to personal biases, to others' personal biases. We want to be respectful, but maybe even look inside at do you have some personal biases that are causing you to perhaps get hung up on this critical thinking thought trap of cause and effect and correlation. So the last little bit, this is just fun, fundamental attribution error. How do we judge behavior of others, right? Do we think of their character? Do we think of the situation then that they're in? So just a fun little cartoon here. Ben is late for the business meeting. Hi, Ben. Yeah, Ben must be a bad person and can't manage his time. Well, there could be other attributes that we're not attributing to Ben's situation. And so if someone fails to meet a deadline at work, they might attribute this to laziness or incompetence, but maybe they have a heavy workload, unexpected obstacles, a balance of work-life issue that could be contributed to the failure. And the last slide, this is a fun one. I give you the link. It's probably one of the funniest fundamental attribution errors that George Costanza in Seinfeld, that his boss is applying to him, not really seeing the full picture that actually he's being successful in his business dealings. So here's the YouTube link. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this short presentation and learned something about mapping and in projections. And I will talk to you virtually or see you in my next video. Thank you.